Welcome to Blueprint, Expo City Dubai's podcast where we meet the visionaries and innovators shaping Dubai's future. Tune in for candid conversations, discover how Expo City is driving transformation, and uncover the ideas that inspire fresh ways of imagining what's next.
Welcome to our latest episode of Blueprint at Expo City Dubai. Our guest today, welcome Sumayya Vally. You're the founder of Counterspace, an architecture and research studio bridging architecture, art and activism, recognized as a WEF Young Global Leader and the youngest designer of London Serpentine Pavilion at my home city. You create spaces rooted in memory, in identity and collaboration. You've led in your leadership of the Islamic Arts Biennale, and the global design projects place you at the forefront of transformative, participatory urbanism. You don't really need much of an introduction, Sumayya, but it's really, really wonderful to have you. And thank you for joining us at the Asia Pacific City Summit and Mayors Forum, our global city summit with more than 150 mayors, more than 200 city leaders, more than 300 cities. You've just got off stage. It's really wonderful to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so inspiring to be with so many people who are at the coalface and the forefront of making change every day, to be surrounded by so many incredible mayors from so many incredible, vibrant cities, and also to be in the heart of Expo City, in the heart of a city, Dubai, that is so much about possibility and imagining and charting the future.
So you raise very much this idea and this point of belonging, but also your reflections really focus on the fact that these decisions made have a significant impact on where we are in the economic hierarchy and the social hierarchy of things. Is there an example or a recent example or a project where you've really seen the built environment shape a meaningful contribution or really enable that?
I mean, Johannesburg, for all of its challenges, but also for all of its vibrancy, is my ultimate inspiration. And we have seen in so many African cities that there are systems that people have, informal and so-called rogue economies and mechanisms of transport, of trade, of movement that really are very, very vibrant and very resilient. And they are unfortunately not enough to get through the system, but they are the beginnings of other intelligences starting to surge through. And I think we can look at and learn from those resiliences. I think that what for me those intelligences have is that they come from our cultural worldviews and systems that come from within us and inside of us. And I'm really interested in how, when we make spaces, we can think about what those formats of gathering and those ingredients of belonging are, so that when we make cities, we're fostering that sense of belonging. And I think very often we see in many new cities, although the term new is also contentious, because I think everything is operating in a certain lineage, whether it has an amnesia of that or it has a recognition of that. But with modernity and globalization, we have methods that are simply imported from elsewhere. Architecturally, we have materials, we have systems that come from other places, and then they're imported into our cities. And then they're at odds with our true ways of life and ways of being. Not only that, they're also at odds with economic and capital and climate forces. And I think we're not making the most of who we are, where we can be, and where we can go if we aren't listening deeply to the context that we're working in.
So building on that, the mayors, the city leaders, those who are really working at the front line of shaping where we live and how we live are the ones that really do have their ear to the ground. So when you talk about we should design for humanity, who's we? And what should we be doing, and how should they be thinking about designing?
You're right. I think the we, of course, architects, urban designers, critical thinkers who are brought in at city level to think about projects and to envision spaces for public, vessels for culture, all of the infrastructures that we have around us. That's we, but I think most importantly, we is people who enable those structures to come into being. And my job is really enabled by others. So absolutely, I think these are things that mayors and people who are decision makers, that's who the we is.
A golden thread through everything that you've talked about is that idea of co-creation and bringing stakeholders together to really learn from one another. But I was really inspired by what how you described the city that we're in today, Dubai, as an infinite space of possibility. The reason why I'm interested in that is because in its DNA and in its identity, Dubai equals possibility. So as you think about applying that as you're a city in any part of the world, how do you take your DNA and your identity and integrate it in how you present yourself to the world? Do you have a couple of thoughts on that?
Yes. So I think, like so many of us, I am somebody who is of so many places and so many diverse cultural conditions. And I find that wherever I am, different parts of me resonate. I'm Muslim, so when I'm in Dubai, of course, there's so much cultural overlap and similarity and familiarity. I'm a resident in Dubai now. But I've been coming to Dubai before that for the last 20 years. And it is a place that my family enjoys visiting because it's so culturally familiar and close, and it offers something to us that resonates with who we are. And like that, wherever I am, I think there are possibly different registers of resonance that we find. But I also have this condition. As much as I have a condition of being an insider, I also have this condition of always being an outsider. And I think that for the most part, that's the condition of so many of us. More and more, we're becoming more and more hybrid, and we have, we all have parts of each other inside of ourselves. And I think that's what my work is working to reckon with and recognize. When we bring out these stories of place, we're bringing out our shared stories. It's not my story or your story, but it's our shared lineage and our shared history.
I absolutely love that you talk about the fact that we have all parts of each other inside ourselves, and it's a beautiful place to start the conversation, but unfortunately also to close the conversation. But I encourage everybody listening to follow your work, to follow you closely. I feel like this conversation could go on for much longer. But Sumayya, thank you so much for your insights, for your time, and for being with us today. It's been an honor to meet you.
Thank you so much
Thank you for
having
joining
me.
us.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Next up, Lord Mayor Rohey Malick Lowe, trailblazing as Banjul's first female mayor, discusses her vision for a gender-equal city and her work to inspire a new generation of women leaders.
So joining us on this special edition of Blueprint, podcast by Expo City Dubai, I'm honored to welcome you, Mayor Rohey Malick Lowe. You are a trailblazer, and I can't wait for this conversation. The first female mayor of Banjul in Gambia, the president of the Network of Locally Elected Women of Africa, the president of REFELA, the Female Mayors African Group, and the vice president of the Global Parliament of Mayors. You champion gender equality, youth engagement and empowerment, and you're really celebrated for transforming governance and communities everywhere. Thank you for joining us. How are you cultivating the next crop of powerful, engaged, committed, dutiful leaders like you?
I think it's always important, first and foremost, to think of mentorship. Mentorship is something very, very important if you want to have more female in leadership positions.
Yeah.
And as a politician, we are policymakers. We also need to advocate for change of policies, and also to add women issues in our budget. That is very, very important.
So, if you're nurturing the next generation of female leaders, what advice are you giving them about how to manage in that environment?
I think the first and foremost, what I always tell to my girls is to concentrate more on education. Education is the key to success.
Yeah.
Number one, and also to be bold enough and to be honest. Transparency is very, very important when you are a female leader, because all eyes are on you. So for me, the most important for the girls is education and the boldness. They need to own it. And also to remember, which is very, very important, that male partners, that the men are our partners.
So, female leadership in general and leadership of cities led by women. This was a city, Expo City Dubai, was built and led also very much in the last decade by a very strong woman. You see the footprint of female leadership in cities differently to the way that you see a male footprint. I mean, science will tell you about how we think about priorities differently, how we don't necessarily just think about the physical infrastructure of a place, but also how you really focus on community development and engaging youth in a way that is really inclusive and institutionalized, and how you move a city forward. Are there any sort of initiatives or priorities that you have as a mayor that you'd like to bring to the table here at the Asia Pacific City Summit and in Dubai with all of the mayors in the mayoral conclave, and as you engage with other mayors and cities, what are the examples or initiatives that we can learn from you?
I think the typical example is the way I define my city as a feminist city.
Very interesting.
And when I talk about feminism here, it's not many people will take the concept of feminism as a woman. No, I am defining feminism here as care, as a caring city.
Very good.
So
yes.
In my city, we have built the concept of care to the extent that the gender equality is working very well. When we talk about infrastructure, for example, we talk about public toilets, we talk about participatory budgeting, we talk about mentorship, we talk about education, we talk about healthcare. This is all inclusive in the city to the extent of when you look at the city, the first picture you will see is a woman. And when I talk about a woman, I'm talking about care. We all agree that women have empathy, women are caring, and this is where the concept of Banjul being a feminist city comes from.
That's beautiful. Cities really are economic engines of growth, and they're the powerhouses of where the future economy will be defined, right? So urbanization is happening at such an exponential rate, particularly in our region, in the Middle East, North and Africa and South Asia region, which is why convening in a place like Dubai is so important to us.
You know, we now live in a global world.
Yeah.
And I think Africa is also developing very rapidly.
Very rapidly.
Just not only, we are not sitting down folding our hands, and this is what I keep saying. Women are the breadbasket of Africa, and without us, Africa will not move an inch. So since we live in a global world and we are now breaking the barriers of the traditional and cultural norms, African women are moving, and they are moving very fast. In fact, they are running to break those barriers for Africa.
Mayor Rohey, what a privilege. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
And finally, in this special episode from the Global City Summit, customer experience visionary Dennis Wakabayashi breaks down why trust has become the new GDP and what that means for mayors and city leaders today.
Today's guest is Dennis Wakabayashi, widely hailed as the voice of CX. Dennis, welcome back to Expo City Dubai.
Hi.
Welcome to Blueprint by Expo City Dubai, our podcast. We've known each other for a very long time. You just got off the stage at the Mayors Forum, talking to mayors from all around the world about the work that you do. You're really well known to us. Thank you very much for joining us and for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
Well, for those of, and we know you very well, but for those of our listeners who are not familiar with what you do, you're one of the world's top influencers in customer experience and how you take that to different contexts and different places. So in the context of the largest global gathering of mayors and city leaders ever, what does it mean to humanize business and urbanize engagement? So, you've been really looking at and talking to mayors and everybody at the conference about how you can elevate that total city experience. Something that really struck me in what you said on stage was trust is the new GDP. Could we start there? And could you tell us what you mean by that?
We sure can. The reality is that we live in a new era with AI where there is an ability to measure new metrics. Trust is one of those. Trust is something that we know that is pervasive throughout the world in communities, in conversations, in cultures. It has a continuity, but up until now has been a little more difficult to measure. And now that we see the relationship between trust and economics, and we see it at scale. So I've been here speaking to your audience about measuring trust. And the mayors are very interested in it from, of course, a number of perspectives. How do they collaborate more closely with their communities? What is the impact on trust and influence? And ultimately, I'm interested, as you are, Nadia, in trust and its ability to help harmonize people and business around the world.
So it has an economic impact, but also very much a social impact. What is the advice, the actual practical advice that you give to somebody that really wants to apply your logic and your thinking to their context? How do they do that?
So much of the work is around measuring context, measuring the beliefs that citizens and people have. When we measure the belief and the sentiment and we quantify that, it often creates a picture that is different than common wisdom or what polls or surveys say, and that manifests itself in a new way for leaders to consider decisions, to align with their constituents, to find opportunities for sustainability or to recover from a natural situation that happens. So we find these things. And if you want me to get even more practical, I would say that we see programs in cities. For instance, there may be a program for those under the age of 18. But when the 18-year-old threshold happens, the government's program sort of changes its support for that constituency. The constituency or the group is still real, but their support is not present. When we measure things like belief, trust, sentiment, we can create the urgency or the value or even the safety to address that group in a different way. Whereas now I think the metrics we use may be a little bit more polarizing or stark.
So can you give me a memorable example of where you've seen those metrics applied to an urban strategy?
Well, I would say that when we look at things like affordable housing might mean something to one group, and when that group, let's say, becomes married or has children, the affordable housing belief changes. And what once was the province of one person and one government now is a reality of three people at three different ages want more intelligence or more sophistication about how to understand those dynamics. And this new era of agentic monitoring gives us those insights.
Yeah.
The internet has finally given our voice a place to be heard. And now that we can hear it, we all as a global community can act together upon it.
One final message for city innovators.
Learn where you can to redefine trust, what it means for your people and what it means in yourself, and the harmony that follows will be the thing that binds all of us together.
What a wonderful way to end. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you.